This year's theme is really special to us, I think, given what's going on in the world and how we want to be able to go about it in a productive way that is impactful, that is sensible, and that is endearing in the sense that you can take away something that is meaningful. This year's theme for Ola on campus, that's our Hispanic chapter, by the way, and it is global, is Óyeme, hear me, right? What does that mean? How does each one conceptualize that? And so when we look at that theme and the artwork that you all have chosen to bring, I think there's a lot of synergy. I think there's a lot of alignment. I think that there's a lot behind that, what we see in the Boardwalk Cafe. If you all know the artists here, their artwork is displayed in the Boardwalk Cafe. And they've done a great job. And so today we're really going to use this opportunity to see what is behind the art, who is behind the artist, what that narrative is. And I'm a big believer in narratives. I think everyone has a story, or at least they should. And if you don't have one, you can kind of make one up, like, oh, I came from the Bronx or something. Everybody loves the Bronx story, right? I'm totally joking. But I've been researching these three artists this past week, and I'm super excited for this talk to get to know them on an intimate level and evoke, a sense of who they are and what Óyeme means. So we're going to talk about all of this as we encounter this discussion. So we'll start with our first artist here, Margaret Garcia, born in East Los Angeles. You've seen her work around the 1984 Olympics, possibly, LACMA, the Laguna Art Museum, and even Cheech Marin. Right, this is awesome. I spent some time on the website. I was like, wow, who doesn't know Cheech and Chong? And if you don't, I'd say make that a Netflix and chill night. It's super funny. And she has a story that is just absolutely amazing. We want to learn about it. And so in essence, she is a working, thriving, and recognized artist. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give her a hand and welcome her. So, Margaret, before we get into the painting that you see here, or your artistic expression that's there, and I mean, God, it's Selena, right? She's been gone for over 20 years. She's timeless almost in a sense, and she's a legend, and legends never die. Talk to us about who you are. You're from Los Angeles. We've had an opportunity to talk a little bit about who you were. I was excited about your story. How did you come into this, working, thriving, and recognized artist?
Well, I was born in East LA to an undocumented person, my mother, but my father was born here. My grandmother was born in Texas, and her mother, my great-grandmother, and my great-great-grandmother came to El Paso. They were Tarahumara from Chihuahua. And they were here a long time ago. My great-grandmother lived in the Santa Clara village down on Virgil Street near the metro station. But my father was born here. His mother was born here. He was repatriated to Mexico. His father went with him. My grandfather, and I found the paperwork of my grandfather, who was Apache, living on a reservation in Arizona and working there, and his registration for the draft for World War I find this, right? Wow. And yet he's repatriated along with my father and his two brothers, and his eldest brother drowns on the trip back through Tijuana. My grandmother, he absconded with the children and then was repatriated, and so he was raised in near Obregón, Sonora, in a little Vamparo village. He was Apache, but the thing that I think a lot of Americans do not understand about the Mexican experience, the Chicano experience, because I'm sort of that subset of group, I'm Chicana, is that he's Apache, and the Yaqui and the Apache are kind of like family. They're like different clans of the same people. And one of the reasons why we hold on so dearly to the terminology of that, and other Latinos don't understand it because they say, well, but you're not including us. It isn't that we want to exclude people. I think we are very inclusive, but the terminology that links us to this land continually and perpetually makes us the immigrant, whether we are or we are not. And my father was born here, his mother was born here. They're from indigenous people who are from this continent. We are not really the immigrant, but we are the perpetual immigrant. And that's something that people do not understand. And it's one of the reasons why people like me, born in the 50s, you know, people call me Chicanosaurus or whatever they want to call me. I'm good with that, you know.
It's the first time I've heard of that, but I love it. That's
yeah, you know, stuck in it. But that's fine for me because I understand how important that piece of heritage is to us, because Mexicanos, all of them, they're not all immigrants. And the California, and I did the metro station at the Campo de Cahuenga, where the capitulation of Cahuenga was signed, making California a territory of the United States. This was Mexico, people. So that's really difficult for people to understand, but it's a very, very deep heritage. And yes, we have a lot of connections with the rest of the Latinos of Central and South America and everything else. But I can't give that up yet.
Yeah. No, you know what? And I completely understand that, and I get that totally, because my grandfather on the Mexican side was had a ranch in San Antonio, Texas, and so in that sense, it was always Mexico. So the family had it for centuries, right? So it's like we didn't cross the border; the borders crossed us, type of thing.
Absolutely.
And he married my grandmother Guadalupe, who you want to tell us a little bit about?
Oh,
you touched upon her a little bit, but when I was reading your story, that hit home for me, because God rest her soul. But yeah. Who is Guadalupe to you?
My grandmother adopted a little girl named Guadalupe, and she died of tuberculosis of the bone in the communicable diseases ward at the General Hospital. And then she found my father again, and he came back to live with her after he was being raised in Sonora. And my mother came illegally. She crossed. And my grandmother was a bit of a coyote. Mm. And so what she did was she gave my mother those papers that showed, so she was using Guadalupe's papers. So when I was born, the name on the birth certificate said Guadalupe. Mm. But, so I have a 2-page birth certificate that corrected that. We went and we corrected all that stuff. And my mother became an American citizen.
Wow. That's amazing. And, you know, just listening to your story, you said a couple of things, repatriated.
Yes.
I think that almost hits home, because it's kind of what almost pretty much went on just recently, right? So can we get a little bit deeper on like repatriated? What does that mean? And then how do you kind of parallel that to like what happened today? I mean, what do you think of that as far as I mean, that's a long time, but it sounds like it kind of happened today with what, you know, the current state of just where we were at, right?
I think, you know, if you're looking at the Mexican history, or, you know, obviously there's racism. They're not looking at white people to say, you know, your mother was from here or not here, or whatever they're doing. And I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but you know, back in the 30s, they literally just went into places, and if you were Mexican, it didn't matter if you were born here, you weren't born here. They didn't look at your papers. They just rounded people up on cattle cars, like my uncle and his 2 sisters, my father's cousins, were literally rounded up out of 1st and 2nd grade and kindergarten, put on an open cattle car with their father. They were born here as well as their mother. and put on that open cattle car where it rained, and they were shipped all the way down to central Mexico to make it hard for them to return. Wow. And they sat in that open cattle car for days, you know, shivering and not being fed and disposed of. There was no compassion for them or their status, you know, at all.
And this was in the what year time frame?
It was in the 30s, but what
Wow.
was interesting with my uncle, who was repatriated, born here, his mother was here, right? He goes down to Mexico and he says, the only thing I wanted was to get an education. All I wanted was an education. So he goes to the Mexican schools down there and they say, oh no, you're an American, you have an American birth certificate. We won't let you take the place of another Mexican child. So they wouldn't educate him here, and they yanked him out of school there. So that meant that the only education he got was before they yanked him out of that classroom and took him down there.
Wow. Then that was in the 30s. We saw something like that now, so that's really something that is interesting.
And just to be fair, I mean, look at what happened to the Okies. Those are white people crossing the country. So it isn't, you know, it's whether it's race or class or somebody trying to find a reason that you're lesser than human to say they're taking something from us. You know, the Mexicanos who come here to work. They come here to work and they work hard. They do jobs that nobody else wants, and they contribute to the economy.
Yeah. Wow. Well, geez, I see. I get to see it on the website, and I love it. Even in person, it's just so much more, and it's so rich, and so many things for us. You know, at Google, we're all about impacting the folks, right, the people, and the best way as possible with our technology. So these issues are definitely important to us here and abroad as well. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit because we got a little bit of who you are. Thank you so much for sharing with us. We have the artist that you see here. Like I said, she was, I think, highly impactful for us, and I think everybody has their own connection to her in some way, and it's globally, right? We saw Drake wearing a Selena t-shirt. We saw Leslie Grace, Dominicana, wearing a t-shirt. I mean, the support for her has just been so tremendous, generations beyond, right? And so what was your inspiration for this, and what about her touched you? And talk to us. Can you walk us through that?
Well, honestly speaking, I was approached by a developer who's looking for a piece of art. You know, there's the 1% for art, and myself and two other artists. And I said, well, it was for a location that dealt with mariachis. And I said, well, you know, you need to honor musicians. And I thought of two people, and the first one was Selena. I thought the second person was Lalo Guerrero, but I really wanted a woman because oftentimes we get, you know, there's not as many of us. You know what I mean. So, you know, it's important to support the women, and so she's beautiful. She's from Texas, where my grandmother's from. So I thought, you know, she's the one. She's the one that I need to honor in this particular way. I can't dig her up and ask her to sit for me. I only have the images that exist of her as they exist of her. So it was about me reinterpreting them and trying to make it look like a stained glass window. And the thing about stained glass windows, there's always a sense of sacredness. You know, it's a spiritual experience. And so that's what I went for.
That's amazing. I mean, I got chills looking at it because it's just so fantastic. And I think you're right. You know, I think that's what it was. It was like there's something familiar about it. I didn't quite know how to put the you know, the pulse on it, but you think you hit it. It's very sacred. You know, you see that. And no, that's fantastic. Now, you mentioned there's 3 of them. We had a chance to talk before, right? And you did 3 of them. This was the biggest. Who has the other 2? Can you share? Oh, you do. Okay, who are you saving them for?
Well,
I want one.
they're different. Each one is a little different. They're done. The other two are done in steel boxes. So I actually try to show it in the dark instead of trying to light it, because the light comes from the back end, so you don't need to light it because it glows.
Wow.
So the boxes were intended to do that, but then I found this other person who started talking to me about shattered plate glass windows, and he was a glass guy, and he talked about the effect, and he said that I could, it's called cold, I want to say cold bonding or cold laminating. There's a process, so he walked me through that, and so I put the shattered glass on the outside. It makes it tough to handle, but you're not supposed to handle it. So if you've got your hands on my art, take them off. You'll get cut.
No touching.
No touching, because
Don't
you'll get.
only look.
You will get
Wow.
cut. So yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, this is just one representation of what she does, by the way. There's other forms of expression artwork that you have. Do you want to just kind of give us a little bit more insight to that? We will have this also posted on our websites as well locally. So for the rest of the folks that are watching that are here, stay tuned, because that is to come. But I want you to kind of give us a little sneak peek into what to expect.
Well, I've done a lot of portraits in the beginning, and one of the reasons I've done portraits is because I felt it was important for my community to define ourselves from within and not be defined by what the media wants to call us. So if you see yourself in the media and you're maybe a gardener, a housekeeper, a gangbanger, or any of the other negative things that I care not to repeat, and they're talking ill about you, part of that is because other people are defining you and they don't know who you are. They don't know us. They don't know us. If they think that we're those things that have been repeated by 45, the only thing I can say is, my brother is sitting in the audience right now. He's a doctor. He's a trauma surgeon. We are people who have accomplished things. We are people who have done things and have contributed, whether you're talking about science, innovation, medicine, arts. We're here, and we are part of the American fabric.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. All right. Manuel Lopez. Sorry, you know what? Her story was so good, it made your back pop off, didn't it?
Yeah, I did.
It felt it, huh? The chair even felt it. No, sorry about that, but so glad to have you here. Manuel Lopez, another Angelino, grew up in East Los Angeles. I read your story. I don't want to talk too much because I want to hear it from you, but it's so funny because as a kid, it started with a competition with his sister on who could draw the better Trix bunny rabbit. And then he ran with that, and he ended up getting so excited about Mario Kart that he painted his whole TV at his home at 8 years old, I believe, the whole TV as a Mario canvas. Mom was not happy. And then he's been around, he attended East Los Angeles College. He transferred to the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, and he was featured in the LA Times article. And that must have been a big moment for you. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a warm welcome of applause, and let's get to know him.
Thank you.
So Manuel, talk to me. I kind of gave us the load on a little bit about who you are, but I mean, I look at your artwork and what you've done here, and I was telling, I think it was you, as a matter of fact. Nilsa, excuse me. I was telling Nilsa, who is our business partner here and facilitated the artist coming here. So thank you so much. We had a chance to talk, and I said, I feel like the artwork brings us kind of here and there at the same time. And when I mean that, the East Los Angeles landscape, but it's very reminiscent of like Mexico, right? In a sense, at least that's what I get from this expression. So talk to me about growing up, how this became something for you, what you've done, all the accomplishments you've done with the Los Angeles article, and then where you plan on going.
Well, I guess I started drawing when I was very young. I mean, as far as back as I can remember, that was a very vivid memory that I have from my childhood when I used to compete with my sister. It was just for, like, just for the fun of it. I guess my dad would get a kick out of it. So, I mean, I always realized that drawing came, more easy than with other kids, like, so like I had it came really easy. Like I could just see things and just put them on paper. I never really took it seriously. It was always a game to me. I mean, I just really enjoyed doing it. I grew up in Boyle Heights, and then at about age, I think 8 or 9, we moved to East LA. And I remember like moving the stuff from our old house to our new house in East LA, and I remember looking at the City Terrace Hills, and they just left. I don't know. I just saw them, and I thought they looked really beautiful. Night came, and the sun was just setting, and the lights were turning on, and I remember seeing like, wow, like, can this get any better? Like it was to me, it just really spoke to me, and then I started thinking about the people who lived up there, and so I left it at that for a really long time. I kept making drawings, just after drawing. This was from when I was about 10 to 18. Never took an art class in high school. I went over to ELAC, met some good people there. A good instructor by the name of Jim Ujikawa, and he just started to, put the idea in me that, it's fun, but it takes a discipline. It takes discipline, and it takes time, and it takes work. And I was 18, so I didn't take it too seriously. Like I would still, goof around, but I still kept at it, and luckily a couple years after I enrolled at ELAC, I put a portfolio together, and I got accepted to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I had done some research. I was checking for major schools that were in the U.S. I looked at Rhode Island School of Design. I looked at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and then I took a trip out there. I visited both campuses, and the School of the Art Institute by far was I mean, they just had this beautiful collection of all sorts of art, and to be able to look at it while studying, I think was definitely like a prize, because I mean, I love to look at art. I love to make it. I like to look at it as well. What else?
So, if we were looking at these 3 paintings here, how does that come about? What's the inspiration? I know you mentioned it seems like landscape is definitely at the forefront of how you envision things and what inspires you and what compels you, right? So, when you start with the landscape and the vision, what's that process like for us that aren't artists, that don't know, but that are super excited and are like, how does something so simple and beautiful happen? And is it as easy as it looks? Is it harder? Like, you educate us a little bit on that process, if you don't mind.
Well, these paintings started off as drawings. I usually always work on site. I take paper, pencil, and I spend a couple of hours up on the hillside. I think it's very like meditative to just sit out there by yourself, and you're confronting the whole landscape in front of you, and you know that you're part of it, and you're looking at these houses which hold people that are contributing to the American society. And so, just like Margaret said, that our lives are not in the media, in the popular media. Those houses hold everything from the gangster to the mechanic that works 80 hours a week, and just being up there, as the sun is setting, those hills just come alive. You get people coming in from work. You have kids running down the street. You have the paletero selling his stuff. Yeah. You have, the paisas coming along with the chalino blasting, and you smell the carne asada, and it feels good. It feels, and I'm part of it, when I look at them, like a lot of people have been telling me that it reminds them of Mexico, but I've been to Mexico, and like it doesn't really remind me of Mexico. But I mean, to each his own, you know. But I mean, when I'm making this, I'm aware that I come from Southern California, and I love. I came across David Hockney's work some years ago, and I love the way he captures light. And so I'm aware that I come from that tradition, even though he's from England, you know. He landed in Southern California, and he made Southern California his playground, you know. I'm looking at other artists like Ed Ruscha. I'm looking at the artists that I couldn't see when I was younger, because, you know, I was walking down the streets and I would see a mural by Frank Romero. I would see a mural by David Botello. So in a way, like when I saw Hockney, like it was something new for me. So these guys right here, I think they're more than anything, I think they're Southern California, you know? I think they're Southern California. I'm trying to capture the sun. I'm trying to capture the palm trees, I think. I think the just when you look at the landscape, I think I get excited by looking at all the different trees, at all the different life forms that are, you know, this is their environment and we're part of it, you know?
Yeah, I love that. It's like you said it was meditative to you. I think it's very therapeutic for us here just listening to that. And then even more exciting and honorable on your behalf is that you're representing that community to the fullest, right? And one of the most unique ways. Like not everybody could do that. So that's absolutely fantastic. I want to switch gears. I do want to talk about the LA Times article. I think that's a huge accomplishment. I had an opportunity to read it multiple times. How did that happen? Did you expect that? Did you ever think, like, you know, at this time in your career it would happen? I mean, you seem pretty young, so that's a big accomplishment to get that visibility, that presence, right? That's awesome. And again, you are the LA story, right? And so what better way to have somebody highlight that and showcase it in the LA Times article, right? So can you talk us through that journey and how it happened, when it happened, what does it mean? Has it been impactful for you as an artist, your career?
So the story came about, like, I usually like kick it with friends that are into the arts, like they do photography or they draw, and we go hit up the hills, right? We'll go up there for a couple of hours, and then one of them is a photographer. His name is Rafael Cardenas, and he tells me one day, hey, let me follow you around. Let me, you know, just pretend I'm not even there. You do your thing, and I'll try to stay out of your way. And I'm like, well, fuck it, let's do it. So we went up. He followed me around for maybe like about 7 hours. You know, we hit up 3 different spots in City Terrace. No, 2 spots in City Terrace, 1 in Elysian Park. So, you know, we went around. He's like, hey man, I'm gonna do like a little video montage of everything I captured. I'm like, go for it, man. Just make me look good, you know? So he's like, dude, I don't promise anything, you know? And I'm like, nah, I'm just messing around, man. Do whatever you need to do, you know? And he, you know, couple months passed. I didn't hear anything from him. And then, like, out of the blue, he tells me, hey, you know what? I'm done with the editing and all that. If you want to check it out, come through. I stopped by. I checked it out. I was like, damn, like I think the way he just filmed everything was really, it was amazing. There was beautiful music in the background by some guy, Arenas. He's from I don't know if you guys have heard of Chicano Batman. So yeah, so he does.
I'm hearing some, So I got to check him out.
So he did the background music, and beautifully composed. You know, he puts it on his website, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. You know, like I was happy for him because it was his first, like editing video, because he's usually shooting photos, and so a couple of weeks after he puts it online, I get a call from my girlfriend, and she tells me, hey, you know what, like Rafa just calls me up and he tells me to tell you to check your email. I don't have a cell phone. I've been cell phone free for about 7 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, can you say that one more? Wait, did I hear that correctly? You don't have a cell phone, and you haven't had a cell phone for 7
years.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So every time people want to contact me,
they got to go through the girlfriend.
I don't even know, man. Like, I don't know how they do it, man. It's pretty amazing if they get to track me down, you know? But anyways, like, so I check my email, and then I read the email from, her name is Esmeralda Bermudez, and she tells me, hey, you know, I saw Rafa's video, and I was wondering if I could interview you for a future piece. And at first, I don't know what to think, because I was like, wow, the LA Times. So I'm like, well, yeah, let's make it happen. She hits me up. We go to the local cafe. She interviews me for about 2 hours.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like we went into it. We spoke. We had lunch. We drank coffee, and then she's like, oh, this is really good. When can we do it again? I'm like, what the fuck, dude? We did 2 hours, and then she wants more. I'm like, let's do it next week. And she's like, all right. And then we do that, and then again, hey, let's do it again. I'm like, damn. All right. So 2 more hours, and then I don't know how many times we met, but it was just really good. Like, it was, I guess the word I want to use is kind of therapy, because she was really trying to go deep into the practice and why I do what I do. And it was a really beautiful experience. And then she's like, okay, it's over. And then she's like, I'm going to bring the LA Times photographer. I'm like, what?
Oh, so you didn't know the whole time it was for LA Times?
I knew it was from the LA Times, but I didn't know that they were going to be shooting,
Oh, and when was this?
This was a couple months ago, I think April.
Oh, this is very recent.
April, yeah.
Wow, that's
April.
awesome. So it's out. This is public. People can go online.
Yeah, it's on the
out.
LA Times link. And so she brings the photographer over, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna take you guys up to the hills. That's my natural landscape, And so we take the photographer up there, and he's setting up his like flashes and all that stuff. And he's like, all right, just sit down, do your thing. And then I start drawing. She's like behind me. She's like still asking me questions. And then the photographer, after we're all done, like he's like hanging off the side of the cliff, trying to take a good shot of me. And then very seriously, after we're done, he comes up to me and he tells me, hey man, you know what? I've been to Iraq. I've been to Baghdad. He's like, but this is the hardest assignment ever, man.
Wow, that's
Like,
right. I think you deserve a round of applause for that one. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. So, what are we to expect next? Is there another article that's coming out? Are you kind of just taking a break from, and working on the next inspiration? What's the...
After that article, I had a solo show. I had my first solo show at Eastern Projects in Chinatown.
Wow. Okay. Is there any more coming up that we should be aware of here while we're?
Well, I'm pretty sure something will come up in the future, but for right now, I'm just working.
Got it.
And there's several exhibitions that are being lined up, but if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, like it's MEAUNL, and I'll be posting stuff up. It's just a plug, but fucking might as well take advantage,
You beat me to the punch. I was like, we're gonna do all of that stuff in a bit.
But yeah, I just don't wanna, I just don't wanna say it like right now, because it's just in the works, and I feel like it's good stuff that's coming, I've been at this for a lot of years, just quietly, just working and working and working, and I think that's like the thing. The thing is that for that show, I put in a bunch of drawings. And everybody was telling me, these are beautiful, they're great, and I was like, don't get me wrong, like I thought that was really great, but it's just like, after the show, it's just like, it's crazy when it hits you, it's like, for every successful drawing, there was 30 drawings that didn't make it, you know what I mean? So I think it's just work, like you just need to work and work and work, and something good eventually will come out of it.
I agree. I agree. And we're here to support you. So we look forward to hearing when the next thing is happening. And we're going to exchange social media, Twitter, all that fun stuff in a little bit. But I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our final artist, Senor Antonio Pelayo. Thank you so much for being here. Let's give him a warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Now,
is this on?
Is it on?
Yeah, right?
There we go. Yeah, sounds good. So I was reading up on you two. And we had a chance to talk a little bit before as well. You have a very, very interesting background. Again, being here, there, so from Glendale to Mexico, back to Glendale, and then the whole Disney experience, right? A lot to unpack there. We have you list. I think you describe yourself as an illustrator and a hyper realist. Right, and then when we look at this piece here, it represents what you called photorealism. So we have a lot to unpack here. So talk to me about the evolution of your artistry, and then we can go from there.
Well, to make a long story short, I used to live in Highland Park, and I used to go to preschool. Preschool was right across from our house. And in preschool, all we did was art. So I started drawing since I was like, I don't know, 3 years old. Shortly after that, my mom started studying with a religious group that's very, I don't want to say the name of the group. I don't want to offend anyone. But it's a very difficult religion to be a part of. Due to that, my dad sent us to Mexico, to their small town. It's called El Palmar. Back in '79, I don't know, maybe like a couple hundred people lived there. And that's where both my parents are from. So he sent us there with the intention of the family to turn my mom and my sisters and myself back to being Catholic. We were the only ones from that religion there. But instead of that happening, my mom became a stronger member of that religion. So we were in Mexico from '79 to '89. During that time, being part of that religion, you're not allowed to associate or hang out with anyone else that's not part of that religion. So I really had no friends. So my only friend really was me drawing. I would just lock myself up and draw all day. And so that's most of what I did in Mexico and be part of that religion. I mean, I was running congregations when I was like 15 years old. So now, '89, we came back to the States, and we weren't supposed to come back and stay. My mom just one day told my dad, we're going to come and visit you. And I was supposed to stay in Mexico. But then everyone started crying the night before, and then everyone was like, all right, you know what, pack your stuff. We're going to take you with us. So we came here, and we ended up just staying. So shortly after that, right out of high school, I got hired by Disney in a very small department, a department that was started back in the 20s by Walt Disney, and that department was all women back then. And so...
Oh, that's different.
Yeah,
right?
it's so weird because, I don't know, almost 100, the department's going to turn 100 in 2023. Wow. Forward to today, now that department's all men. They just hired my son about a year ago, and then we hired another gentleman.
And that's the ink and paint department you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so what for us that again, we're not artists here. Well, I'm not definitely, and I don't know if anybody else in the audience is, but I'm definitely not an artist. I would like to know, well, what does that mean? Because I look at your paintings just off of your website, for example, and it's so different than what I'm used to seeing, right? So how do you talk to me about that, like ink and paint department?
Well, the inking and painting, I don't exhibit that. That's just what I do for Disney.
Oh, okay.
My personal stuff is pencil, and this piece in particular is not pencil, but it's from my pencil drawing. It's a collaboration I did with Richard Eduardo. So that's his touch there.
Yeah, this is your collaboration piece. Yeah, okay, good, because I saw the pencil art that you have on your website for this, and then we saw this one, and I was researching this. It's a collaboration piece. As an artist, is it different being in a collaboration piece? Because it seems when you have like your own artistry, it's very individualistic. It's very like, no, this is like my story. I'm proud of it. It's not like you're not segregating yourself or from somebody because of your own beliefs, but you're just proud of like what you do. So how was this experience being that it was a collaboration piece and being an artist?
Well, Richard saw my work and he said, we need to do a collaboration. So I told him, well, what piece? I'll let you choose a piece. And he chose Frida. So, I mean, I think that collaboration was a lot of fun. I admired Richard. He, became one of my mentors, and
that's good. So nothing changed. That's good because sometimes you collaborate and it doesn't always end with the mentorship, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
No, Richard was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why did he choose the Frida Kahlo?
Probably because of she's such an iconic, just like Selena, and she's inspired a lot of us as artists. She was one of my inspirations growing up in Mexico. Her, Diego. All the muralists from Mexico. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what's the next big thing for you? Are you working on anything right now that we should be aware of? Are you still at Disney? Is there something new that you're trying out? Is there more collaborations that we should expect?
Still at Disney. Currently, I'm working to expand my Familia series, and it was a documentation of my family's migration from Mexico. I have a part 1 and part 2 on that, and I plan on expanding on that. And also, I do some lucha libre pieces, that I'm experimenting with.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to lead us into the theme, as I mentioned, Óyeme, right? That's kind of where we're at with Hispanic Heritage Month and the theme that we want to convey throughout Hispanic Heritage Month. So when you look at your artwork, what if you had to choose one of your paintings or your artistic expressions? I don't want to say the wrong words here, but if you had to choose one thing that would be representative of that, what would it be and why? And what does that mean to you?
For me, I think from Mi Familia series, I mean, I would say all of them, but one in particular would probably be a portrait of my dad and his cousin. And I got it from a photo that they took, and it was taken the day they got deported from LA. And it was a photo taken in Mexico. So I drew that. So that to me, meant a lot. I can relate in some ways because I migrated to Mexico and then I migrated back here, and I wanted.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to play with that message and to show people like the things that we go through as immigrants, things that we feel, like feeling lost in another country. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, that must have had a profound effect on you, right? Being so young and going through that experience. And I hate moving myself now, even. I can't even imagine what it would have been like as a child, right? So,
well, imagine going to your hometown and no one there likes you because you're not part of their religion. And then coming back here, I lost all the friends that I had, so I have no friends here. I'm in high school, and I hated school for those reasons. And when I came back here, my English was shot, so they put me in ESL for about a year till I caught up.
So imagination was your best friend, huh? And the pencil.
Pretty much,
yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Margaret. Yes. Óyeme. What does it mean to you? What painting or expression or artistic? You gave us a great intro. A lot of strong themes here that were very close to us, just being familiar in general. What would be your answer to that question as far as the theme that we're trying to convey here in your art?
The public artwork that I did for the Universal Studios Metro Station, because it covers the history of the Mexicano here in California and how California became a part of the United States, and how it was part of Mexico, and I worked on that particular project. I mean, from beginning to end, it was a span of 10 years, and I had a historian, Bill Mason, who worked for the Museum of Natural History, who provided me with a lot of the research in order to get that history down. And it covers that period of history, so I would have to go with that. But other than that, I would have to say my next painting.
Uh-oh, I like that. Next. And how do we give us some kind of...
I'm expected to do a solo show at the Museum of Ventura, in the Ventura Museum of Art in 2020 in the fall.
Okay. All right. Well, we gotta stay updated and stay close to that, because that's very exciting. So congratulations on that, and we can't wait for that to happen.
Thank you.
Sir, your turn.
Favorite piece?
Favorite piece in the context of like Óyeme, hear me, what that means for you. Again, it could be a political stance, it could be just a personal stance, it could be motivational. I mean, I don't want to get to make it a contract or anything, but I'd like to know if we, given where we're at with, hear me, Óyeme, and the state of where we're at today, you've heard the stories, you have your narrative. If you had to choose one painting or artistic expression that you have, what would that be and why?
I did like a dictionary back in second grade. where we did every letter in the alphabet, and then we had to pick like 9 drawings for each letter. And my mom just barely found it a couple of months ago, and we sat down and we just went through it. And I mean, I think that was pretty special, you know, because you're being introduced to a language. Like I feel like my English is I mean, I was born here, but I grew up as a Spanish speaker, so I still have that very heavy accent. And I mean, just going through the alphabet in the English language, and I threw in a bunch of like you know, I threw in some nopales in there, I threw in some botas, and so just to know that you could interplay, you know, the cultures, and to know that it's okay to do that. You know, I thought that was, I mean, just in retrospect, you know, seeing it a couple of months ago, and it makes it okay, and I just was just really happy that my mom took care of it after all these years. Yeah, I think that one definitely probably speaks.
Wow,
for me.
2nd grade. I mean,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
it
To
was.
be able to, that's fantastic. Wow, that's incredible. Well, I think we have some time. I want to open the floor up to questions, because you know, I had my own kind of narrative here of how I wanted to get this and illustrate this talk, but I know we want to hear some from the audience as well. So we have time to go ahead and do some little Q&A from the audience, right? All right, excellent. So anybody have any, you could just, actually, as a matter of fact, to make it even more fun, we have this really cool ball, or actually a cube, I should say, I'm going to throw. Thank you, Nilsa. So if anyone wants to ask a question, get input, we're here. We're opening up the floor.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if you wanted to make some news, what would that piece be about? You want to make some news. You're going to break some barriers. What would that piece be?
You want to make some noise, like you're really going to,
Like you're going to
Media's gonna go, blogs are going off.
Go.
This one's good for Margaret.
I think that if I wanted to make some news, if I wanted to make some news, then I would want to make news because it was worth making news about, right? And right now, it just seems that the things that get the most news are not the things that I particularly care to hear about. I'm oversaturated with a lot of negativity and the ill doings of people that I don't care for. And so if I wanted to bring news, I would want to bring news to those people in those situations. You know, Standing Rock, the earth, the water, the ecology, and also the positive things. There are many people looking for solutions in small villages in Africa, in India, in Mexico. There are people who are invested in STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. There are people who are trying to find solutions, and artists are a part of that, whether you're talking about gentrification, or you're talking about education, or you're talking about ecology. So for me, it's about investing in that aspect. What project? I just got the East Side Initiative. It's called Creating Cultural Currency. We're interested in creating art that helps to teach people skills so that they can get a job, so that they can go out there and work, using arts, using science to solve those problems. That's what I'm about.
You sound like a Googler. You sound like a Googler. Yeah,
I am a heavy Googler.
I love it. What about you? What about you two over here? If you want to, you know, let's turn the table upside down here. Let's cause some disruption, right? And it doesn't always have to be in a rah-rah way. That's kind of like my take, and my really good friend out here in the audience is always trying to calm me down. But there is ways to do it in a more, you know, say a lot without saying nothing type of way, almost. You know. So what do you gents think about that?
Personally, like my work is not loud, so I I'm not sure, but I'm with Margaret. I like to focus on doing positive things. If there was a piece that I would create, it would be for that, to contribute, to help. How to become a better organizer, because that's what I do also on the side. I organize events that raise funds for great organizations like Plaza de la Raza, and how that has an impact on the community and the kids involved in there, especially because they're involved in the arts.
And Plaza de la Raza, that's in Echo Park, right?
Lincoln Park.
Or Lincoln Park. Okay, sorry. I got it.
Maria's the
Thank you for
director.
clarifying.
Yes, I know I talk a lot.
No, that's okay.
But
Please.
I want to say something else that I find really, really important. We define our community through our culture. And this is us. This is how we define who we are. And we need to own it. And we need to own it very strongly, because somebody else is going to call you on that and tell you who you are instead of you defining who you are. You end up being in a position where they're calling you rapists and murderers and things like that because they feel they have the power to do that. So you need to protect that part of your culture, and you need to define it through the arts by supporting the arts within the community. And you do that with the artists.
I'm with her. Hashtag. You don't get away so easily. We want to hear from you.
No, it's what they said, I'm kind of quiet as well, but right now I'm working with Plaza de la Raza, and I think just working with young kids and showing them, the little that I know, and also, I think learning from them, that interaction, going back and forth. I also teach at Semillas del Pueblo, which is an indigenous-based school in El Sereno, and I designed their logo, and we carry it for every procession we make. The last one, the major one we had was at City Hall, to try to, well, actually we succeeded in changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. And just, and so, it's like Margaret said, it's about knowing your roots, because we all have roots, and you gotta be well planted in order for you to know who you really are, and where you're coming from, and also where you're gonna eventually end up at, and even beyond that is like the people that you're gonna bring into this world, and you just wanna have them know who they are when, like I said, where they came from. So I think just through that, little things that we do, that are gonna impact the world, hopefully for the better.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I think on that note, this has been a phenomenal talk. And again, Margaret, Antonio, and Manuel, thank you so much for coming and taking the time out of your day to share these important insights with us. Because again, you are right. We are being defined. We define our cultures by art, and this is something that we don't probably pay enough attention to in life, but we should. And you've done a great job at illustrating that in our Boardwalk Cafe. So if any of you haven't had time to spend time looking at their art, I think this is a nice segue to not only spend time, but understand who the person is, the artist is behind that artistic expression that they have so graciously and kindly delivered here for us in the spirit of Hispanic Heritage Month. And so with that said, I just want to send a special thanks to Ana Santos, Hector Carmona, and Jeanette Villavicencio for really helping me facilitate this talk. Our Ola Global chapter, as well as our Ola Lax chapter, local here. Thank you all so much for supporting us in this. And then last but not least, to Nilsa Serrano and the Latino Heritage LA family, because this is a partnership that we've come to, again, a tradition that we want to continue with other artists that are doing amazing things like yourselves. And so thank you for the support here and for helping us with this. And then certainly, again, to you artists for coming here. Thank you so much for these insights. They've been highly valuable. And before we conclude, you touched upon something important. I'm a big believer in social media. Again, we can't always just have these talks, right? But we do want to stay in touch with you. We want to know what's happening. We want to know what's going on with you in 2020. So how do we have, besides a website, do we have any Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Because this is recorded actually live too. So feel free to say it slowly so we can get it down. But we want to know. We want to stay in touch. We want to follow.
I do a lot of Facebook. I'm not too much into tweeting. I do have an Instagram account that I can give you the number to for the website,
Okay.
but that's because I can't remember all those numbers. They've got us to the point you can't remember your social security number and they're going to change your password. It's really bad. So Facebook, Margaret Garcia, artist.
Okay. Margaret Garcia, artist. Facebook, Senor Pelayo.
Pelayo.
Huh?
Website, Facebook, Instagram, Antonio Pelayo.
All Antonio Pelayo across the board. All right, Antonio Pelayo.
What's my name?
Oh, wait,
But
email. I think we only get an email. I was
it's,
No
I'm running on
phone.
Instagram, but it's
The girlfriend, what's your social media? No, is there a website though?
no website.
No website. Is it
There's-
coming?
No, not in the near future. But I have the Instagram. It's my name, but it's all scrambled up. Like it's the hardest.
Yeah, I was
Instagram
looking,
ever.
and I thank you. I thought I was going crazy. I was like, I can't find him anywhere. It all makes sense now. Okay,
So like if you guys want to follow, it's MEAUNL _ LPOEZ. Damn, I got it right. All right.
that sounds like one of my passwords. I thought you didn't have a cell phone.
No, it's an iPod, man.
Oh.
It only connects when I have Wi-Fi.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give one last round of applause. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. Gracias. Muchas gracias por venir.